All right, I'll call to order the Public Works and Utility Committee meeting on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023, 5 p.m. at the Richard Young Fire Station. And roll call, please.
Trustee Mark Monin,
Present.
trustee Linda Beal,
Here.
committee member Jane Miller,
Here.
Joe Everly,
Here.
Dan Platt,
Here.
utility administrator Mike Sargent is present and in the audience. Engineer Mitch Lysis is present and in the audience. DPW director Joe DeStefano is present and in the audience. Administrator Kathy Nicholas,
Here.
attorney John Macy,
Here.
and clerk Lisa Capazzo Catch to record the minutes.
All right, thank you. We will stand for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizens' comments. We'll start with in person. Anyone like to make a comment, please step to the podium. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Second call, seeing none, we'll move to online.
No hands raised on Zoom.
No hands raised on Zoom. All right. Last call on Zoom.
No one's on Zoom.
One's on Zoom. Moving on to approval of meeting minutes, March 22nd, 2023, Public Works Committee, and April 26th, 2023, Public Works Committee. They are in your packet. And does anyone have any questions on the draft minutes?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Jay. Second. Seconded by Everly. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Moving on to the department reports. First, we'll start with Department of Public Works Director Joe DeStefano Jr.
All right. So outside of my report, a couple of things that are going on right now. We have the crack filling RFP live for the Lisbon roads, some of our parking lots. That bid opening will be June 7th, and I'll have it for you guys at the next meeting, our bids, and then we can discuss. I did get one contractor stop by today, so to get a map, that's the first one so far, but I'm sure we'll get a couple of bids, I would think. We will see. Last week, it was last Tuesday, there was a 60% meeting for the repaving of Highway 164, which isn't happening until 2027, which is the DOT just ahead of schedule, obviously. But the only reason I bring it up is because I think all of us are aware of the Plainview and 164 intersection being an unsafe intersection. And I reached out prior to the meeting, talked to Dawn, I believe her name was, with DOT, and then she said they actually had a lot of feedback from residents at a pre-informational meeting they did, and they are looking into it further. Because originally, a year ago, we had a meeting, 2 years, they had no interest in it, just due to the police, reports and any of the data they had. It just didn't warrant it to be looked into further, but due to a lot of citizen concerns and all that, and that was good. So at the meeting, it didn't come up, basically came up saying, we are aware, we're looking into it. We're 4 years away, so we have time, but that is good that they're looking into it. Question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Do they ever consider other subdivisions or development in the area when they look at those roundabouts? Because the traffic increase on that road.
Oh, yeah.
has been
It
huge
keeps
presently.
going. Yeah, it's I don't know if they do, you would think, right? I mean, it makes sense. You got all that to the west going on and they're coming that way. And it's amazing when, I'm in that intersection enough. I try to avoid it during rush hours. I will say myself, just because I can get around it other ways and it just makes more sense. But there's times like this morning, we were hauling some material out of the compost site, and most efficient way is crossing that. And we rolled pretty, by 6:30 this morning doing that. So you're beating the rush, but you get there between that 8 to 9 window. I mean, you can park there, and then they're doing the, Russian roulette to get through and all that. So it's good that they're looking into it. So I will follow up as I know more, probably not till maybe later this year or next year, but either way, it's good that they're looking into it. That's a big thing, because they really didn't have a whole lot of interest at the beginning. The sewer inspections, as far as the grinder pumps go with the Bellic that was approved, have, I'd say 95% been completed. 3 residents they cannot get into contact with by phone numbers that are on this list or knocking on the doors. So I think, I was talking to Kathy, I'll just send a letter and hopefully that way they can see at their convenience, give us a call and we can coordinate with them. And Randy and I went out and he stayed out a little longer than I did, but I even went out too and we shadowed a little bit with the Bellic on a couple of these maintenances, and not that difficult. I'll just say I'm not an genius by no means at it, but I think we can definitely take this on very slowly. And I want to slowly stress that we have a lot of other things going on. We're not bored, but I think slowly we can definitely take on some of this stuff in-house. And I told Kathy, possibly these 3 that we can't get a hold of, maybe these are a good 3 to test in-house, and do it ourselves. So, and that'd be a way to not have to do 30, just do 3 and see how we do. So, but first we got to get a hold of them. So I'll be working on that here. Salt shed, if you go by the DPW, I think you can, you'll be seeing a lot more progress going now week to week. The posts are, well, 3/4 of the posts are up, I would say. The footings are in the concrete, half walls are up, and they're putting the posts in. And then we'll see the siding go, or the inside walls go up a little ways, and then Wolf will come in and pave the floor while the top is open so they can see and let it exhaust out and they don't sit in a little building and suffocate with asphalt while they're paving. So we're trying to do this where they're gonna have post up, then come back and pave and then come back and finish the building. So should time out perfect though. We're getting lucky the way it's all shaken out.
What's the completion date?
Tentatively in July sometime, and then we got a little asphalt work around the building to do, and we're gonna do some lighting inside. I just said we tackle that ourselves in-house, so should go well. And then the Hillside Road and Q roundabout is that to be open very soon. I'll leave it at that, and tentatively possibly next week, but I don't want to get anybody too excited and then all of a sudden it gets delayed, but this weather has been helping them big time. So that looks like that'll open up and the detours will be bye-bye and we'll get things rolling there. A couple less things. Wisconsin Pump Works out of Green Bay. They are a E1 dealer and they do maintenance on grinder pumps. I've been in contact with them, had a few discussions with them. We snagged a grinder pump that failed, that DeBellic replaced here last week, 2 weeks ago. And we are going to, and I'll bring more information to you, but we're going to get it up to Green Bay. Randy went for a day class up there on maintenance and seeing the process with all that. So what it sounds like a lot of other municipalities do is they'll keep one rebuilt one in-house, just sitting on the shelf, or they have a failing one, they run out there and they throw it in. You don't think about it. You unplug it, it's all a quick connect, you throw it in, you grab that one out. It does the same thing the last one did. It isn't specific or nothing. So then you just get it back and you do the service on it. And if it needs to get rebuilt, we're talking a fraction of a new one. And then you have it rebuilt and we always will be sitting on one. Kind of a plan. I think that's going to work out nice. So we're going to get that pump up there next week and then we'll find out what they look at it for free. So have them look at us, let us know what the issue is, and then we can explore options there. So that's something in the works as well. And then my last thing is something that we've just seen this year, unrelated to all the other stuff. We've been getting a couple calls on requests for signs at intersections that are uncontrolled within developed subdivisions. These are not obviously our big roads. And they don't warrant the signage. It's a random situation that was requested, and we've had it in 2 different subdivisions. And we're just kind of right now going with the policy of, these are one-off situations. We totally understand if this becomes an issue where the sheriff's department is out there, we're going to have to do something. We understand, but that isn't happening. It's just people calling, and we're trying to be nice as we can to say, hey, if it's uncontrolled. Mark and I kind of text a little bit about a state statute yesterday so I could get the right one, but 346-18 parentheses 1, whatever it is, that says basically that you can, you come into an uncontrolled intersection, 2 cars at the same time, you're yielding to the right. And regardless, you should just be looking around, right? And that goes for pedestrians, bicycles, the whole 9 yards. And it's just something that we're going to look at putting on our socials, in the newsletter, that maybe the HOAs will be able to start sharing that. We're not going to sign every intersection. We're going to have signs all over the place, and it just gets a little redundant. And then you know, the crazy thing is you can go into some of these subdivisions that have been around for 30+ years and they've never had a sign at that similar Thai style intersection. So we're trying to make the public aware and, but you know, you get the questions and you got to look into it and figure out the right way to handle it. So that's kind of the process we're going to start going with that. But we're aware if things become an issue, we can look into it further. So with that, that's about all I got for today.
Chairman?
It'd be nice if they stopped at the ones that had the stops.
Well, I won't even get into my theory about signs, but go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, what a great job Joe is already doing, taking on the responsibility with Randy, going in and really trying to find ways that we can cut some of our costs. He did that with the quote for that we'll be dealing with later today, but the idea that we're going to keep try to refurbish one of the pumps instead of constantly putting in a $5,000 pump, since it's our responsibility currently. I think that was a great thing that he looked into, and I look forward to hearing more of what he can do for us.
Yeah, and Randy, who she mentioned, his dad used to do a lot of work for DeBellic in the sanitary district, has since retired, but he is a phone a friend and Randy has that knowledge, so he's been helping and we've been working together and he's gotten me some of these contacts, so I'll give him a little kudos. He's
I like to
listening.
say
I
the
see,
same.
I gotta make sure he doesn't get mad at me tomorrow. I see he's up there.
I'd like to say the same thing that Kathy said. I was talking to Joe before, and I thought it's just wonderful how he's got this other company out here. And as being on the district for so long, a committee, we've seen such high costs of replacing things, and I'm excited about checking out this other company.
Yep, sounds good. We will discuss further shortly.
Mr. Everly, do you have something? No. Got it all. Anyone else have anything for Joe? All right, moving on to 5B Utility District. We'll start with Mike Sargent. Unless you want to go second.
Good evening. There was a report in your packet, it starts off looking at the flows, and the flows that we talked about last month, where they were pretty excessive due to the snow melt, have come down with the exception of Willow Springs. Willow Springs for the month of April started off pretty high, but they've come back. And in discussion with Don today, who'd gotten an updated report from Sussex, the flows at Willow Springs are back to what we would normally expect them to be. But I did reach out to the manager of Willow Springs and asked him if there was any explanation for why the flows were so high. And he had none other than just routine snow melt and the fact that they know that they have infiltration problems within the system. So anyway, that's pretty much where we left it. The flows are, like I said, are back to where we would have expected them to be at this time of year. The utility bills for the lift stations also support that we're back into a normal level. We're not seeing any real significant inflow. And then for the Richmond School, I think are you gonna address the Richmond School? Yep. Okay, so I'll let Tim address Richmond School a little bit later. Also in your packet is the draft of the CMAR report. The CMAR report is an annual report that has to be made to the Department of Natural Resources. It deals with the operations of the sewage utilities for the year of 2022. We ask you to look at that. We need a resolution passed by the board by June 30th. We have to submit the fact that the CMAR report was accepted by the regulatory body by June 30th. So we have an opportunity to look at that. Beyond that, are there any questions?
Usually there's a CMAR and a CMOM report, the two.
Right, but there's just going to be the CMAR. The CMOM comes after the CMAR is
Right,
approved.
when is that due?
Well, as soon as we get the approval, then we
Okay.
can start working on the other one.
Okay.
And I did have Don look over the draft report. He got back to me today and said that he had no exceptions. Don Neitzel from,
Looks fine to me too. Okay, thank you.
yes.
Mark Jane?
I know I asked this last time and I forgot at my age, but Who owns the collection system in Willow Springs?
They do.
They do.
They own the entire system all the way up to the interceptor, the Lennon interceptor.
Okay, thank you.
Can we ask them to check out their pipes and things?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have the right to, anytime we feel that there's infiltration,
Yeah,
to request them to find out, like, you remember the incident on Good Hope Road where we could see that there was
right.
a sudden increase in flow. We did some televising to isolate the service that we thought was failing
Mhm.
and going. So it was just like last month, you made the request of Don to do some work with Richmond School because it's their system.
Right.
They went forward and do it. So the same is true for Willow Spring.
So how long should we wait to see if it goes up again?
Well, every time it rains, we see that Willow Springs goes up quite a bit. Willow Springs, if you look at it comparable, their flow is about 3 to 4 times the flow at any other lift station that we have. So we always kind of look and say, okay, if it is it moving proportionate to the others, then it's pretty much what we would expect.
Uh-huh.
We have infiltration throughout the system, whether it be at the manholes, anywhere where we're involved with infiltration in the system, we do maintenance to try to correct it. When we find or isolate infiltration to a service, then it becomes the homeowner's responsibility to fix it.
Mhm.
Jane had a question?
Actually, I have two questions or
questions.
comments. Are you looking for us to approve your CMAR?
I don't know what the process within the village is. The way the sanitary district worked in the past, the sanitary district board approved the CMAR report. And then they passed the resolution, but I believe in this case, we actually have to have the village committee approve it. So I don't know who would be bringing it forward at the village committee. Would it be this committee or? Right,
Have
so
we got time to, what's the,
Due date.
July 1, isn't it?
June 30th, yes.
June 3rd, okay, so do we have time to have? We're gonna have to, it's gonna have to go directly to the village board this time. We're not gonna have time.
Yeah.
Directly.
And then my one other comment that we've talked about prior with both Willow Springs and Richmond School. Both of those entities are gonna start rolling into their budgets for 2024. And in all fairness to them, if we're going to be expecting them to either do some televising or repairs, we should at least let them know and get them in line so that they're aware that these are things that we're gonna ask them to do so that they can stick it in their budget cycles as well.
Well, the conversation I had with the manager from Willow Springs was kind of a first time that he's been ever at in the last 5 years, first time that he's been asked about the flows.
Okay.
Other than, when we had high flows, we'd call and say, this looks unusual, or, is it a concern to you? And it was never any concern to them.
But I guess because we do have that responsibility, it would be a matter of, this is what we see and this is what we're going to be asking you to do. And I believe it's one of those things too, that we could force it to be done, or we would take it on and then just bill them back for it, I would suspect, but. Anyway, I just know that those budget cycles are usually a pretty good reason why people try not to do something. So.
I think that's a very good point, because Willow Springs, I believe, is gonna have to hire an engineer and come up with a program, how they're going to address an II study for that whole complex. This is not something that's gonna be done by Sam the plumber. I mean, this is a significant effort on their part, and they're gonna have to get somebody who knows what they're doing to put together a program, hire somebody to do it and come. I think we should ask for a review of that program before they start on the whole thing. We need a concerted effort, I believe, that makes sense. And they're not gonna be able to do that themselves. And I think we should review it before they undertake it, so we don't have to end up doing it 2 or 3 times. They have to.
Chairman?
Yes.
For the items for the next agenda, I was thinking about going back to our historical information. Did you want to place on the next agenda the discussion on televising, sending out letters, or next step for Richmond and the mobile home or Willow Springs, or do you think that'd be too much at one time?
Just on the historical perspective, or actually following through with
Following through.
it. We can put them on there, and I don't know what else the month is gonna bring us with additional items, but.
Yeah.
There's our start.
Okay, I just thought we could move on to that for the next agenda. Thank you.
Anyone have anything else for Mike? Make sure you hit on the next one.
Yes,
All right.
yeah.
All you.
So Mike touched on it. So the other thing that you got to think about regarding the Willow Springs excessive flows is that that's taking up capacity of your sewer system. So if there's any future expansion that you want to see out there, that right now it's limiting us, at this point in time. So I'll just have to say that Don was looking for some direction on where to go with this. So maybe Mike and Don can work together on preparing some type of a letter that would go out to these places that we're getting the excessive flows from. I'll jump around a little bit. So Don had prepared this memorandum back earlier in May, and some things have changed on it. So the Business Park East, the road was graded, everything was completed there. We actually just finished doing the binder course on Leeds Lane and also the turn lanes on Main Street, and also on a portion of County Line Road. So just wanted to update you on that. Regarding the Richmond School lift station, Don had talked with Ed, the grounds and buildings manager, and they had hired a company to come in to do some televising internally within the school. The individual that they hired went in there to started at the clean out right inside the wall where the sewer comes in, only went about 150 feet into the building and said, "This all looks good. I don't know why I'm really doing this." Turned the camera around, went out of the building and televised an area that we had already televised, and basically said, "Everything looks good." So Don was going to talk a little bit more with Ed and just basically state, if it's the board's decision as well, that we need to have everything televised within that school, because there's obviously some issues in there. There's been comments in the past from what I'm hearing that they may have a crushed pipe someplace underneath the building. So it'd be our recommendation to go ahead and make some, direct them to do that internally throughout the school.
Yes.
I guess while we're on that Richmond lift station, it's probably gonna be both of you answering the question, but in the last year of, you compared 2020 and then 2021 flows in your chart. I just wanted to see how significant this is, that in the last 10 months of 2021, every single month had higher flows than the previous year. I guess, for example, when it reports that Richmond school had, let's pick November of 20 versus 21, it went from 44 to 55. How significant is that to a layperson?
And that's gallons per minute that you're looking at right now. I don't have that. And you're saying it's consistent with last year's? I would say it may just be due to a more of a wetter spring.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to
Possibly.
point out is that, like January from 20 to 21 went down by 40. And then February went down by, 16? But then every other month after that was all up. Mostly in the double digits over. But I guess what does that mean to me reading the report?
So essentially 40 to 55.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Being that this is my first night here and I haven't looked at those numbers myself, historically, what I would suggest is I can talk to Don about that and have him maybe send over some type of correspondence, just letting you know that this is what our theory is behind this and why that might be.
Yeah. I guess my question would be, is 40 a normal flow? And then now it's high because it's at 52, or is it 40 is high and then 52 is super high?
Well, I was telling as I look at the summer grade when the school is full. Because there's.
Right.
There's virtually nothing in the building, and therefore the flow should go down, so we always look at May, June, July, August. We see the flow go down, and then in September, we see them going back up.
Yeah,
So the real infiltration level is probably easy to see in that May, June, July, August period.
They used to have summer school up there. So we gotta be careful about saying there's nobody in there in the summer.
For the last 3 years, it hasn't occurred. There's been very many people. in
yeah,
there.
and I'm not, I see the pattern of it. I guess what I'm asking is, what does that number mean? What does 40.400 mean to me?
That's the real volume that goes to the lift station.
So is that high for that lift station?
So have you ever gone through to do like calculate what your residential equivalencies would be out of that, like how
We-
many students there are?
We can do that.
Okay.
We'll
That's what
find
I'm
out the
thinking that might
the school population,
Get that.
Yeah.
yeah, and then figure out what we would anticipate and then what they're actually discharging.
Right, I hear that we have maybe a potential infiltration problem, but like, to me as a person just coming into this, how do I know that?
Yeah,
You
It's
know,
37% increase.
Yeah.
It's very, very significant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than just a dribble. Are we setting up, Kathy, just a question, are we setting up separate accounts for these charges we're incurring for both of these entities so that we can recoup some of this cost?
Are we talking about Willow Springs?
And Richmond?
Mike does that. He separates the bills.
No, I'm talking about, we're incurring additional engineering costs and other costs for these two individual entities. My thought, we need to be able to recoup those costs because we're doing something they're causing a problem.
Kind of like a chargeback.
Yes,
I don't think we do that. Did we do that? You did? Okay. Mike would know that information because he does the accounting.
Have the engineering cost, legal cost.
The microphone, we've got people on Zoom.
And although while you've advanced to the microphone, Mr. Everly, as you know, this is not an agenda item. This is just a report. So he can certainly answer the question, but my recommendation was we place this matter on next month's agenda so that it can be fully discussed at that time. But we're allowed to give a brief response to these questions, but we can't, the people didn't know it was on the agenda. And so to be fair to them, we got to put it on.
Historically, the sanitary district number one's direction was anytime we incurred any additional cost for the sake of a customer, whether it was somebody asking us to go out and do some engineering about a hookup, or if we were doing work at the Richmond school, we would accumulate that cost and we build it. And for Richmond school, it's a pretty much of a tradition every month that there's been a charge for whatever we had recurred during the month would go to them. Relative to Willow Springs, we have never really done any extra engineering towards Willow Springs.
I've got it on the, down as a chargeback for any of the customers.
yes.
For discussion.
We'll talk about it next month. Thank you.
all right, Mitch, any further on?
the only other thing that I had on, just wanted to touch base on, regarding Don's, memo was, he was looking at looking for some quotes for the air relief valve at the Richmond School Lift Station and also, some manhole and sewer repairs, that were identified within the system. He's received, basically only one quote at this point in time for any of those, repairs or improvements. And so he would be hoping to discuss that with you next month, once he receives the additional quotes. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, 6A, new business, discussion and necessary action to replace a grinder pump tank located at N77W22300 Wooded Hills Drive and award the work to Secured Pump Services LLC for a cost of $6,365 and recommendation to the village board of same. Joe DeStefano Jr.
All right, yes, we chatted about this last month and we were able to get another contact. Randy had some work done by these guys and he's dealt with them in the past. And I reached out to Dylan at Secured Pump Services and I got a very good vibe from him and this is his quote. So I think it's a no-brainer to give them a shot and see what he can do. I mean, he's knowledgeable. He deals with E1 pumps. He's got one in his truck. This isn't like the first time he's done it. His brother, who he works hand in hand with, owns the excavating company. So then when they get a project like this, they just work together. So neither quote involved any kind of restoration. I'm sure a good excavator, as I like to say I am once in a while, would leave this pretty decent looking when they leave. Obviously, though, we would have to come back and do final restoration, you know, so.
So Joe, last meeting, we talked about repairs.
Yeah,
Can you kind
okay.
of
Yeah,
explain that?
so the repairs are quick and blunt, a Band-Aid, you know, and when you're talking, it's 11 feet in the ground. And the thing is, they didn't want to put it on the inside only, where then you wouldn't have to do any kind of excavation because their fear was it would just, you know, pop out due to infiltration from rain or groundwater, whatever. And at that point, then you now have dug the exterior open and you're going to patch it from both sides. And really the tank cost, if you look at the numbers, the Bellick didn't give us a breakdown, but Secure did. And you see the tank is at 3,600. I get that we could maybe spend 500 to 1,000 on a Band-Aid, but I think to me, when you're looking at it, we're opening this all up for $6,365, and it's done with a brand new plastic. Now, mind you, we're talking a fiberglass tank in the ground currently. All new E1 tanks have now gone to a plastic. So, you know, good chance unless you have a puncture or something weird happens in the ground, this thing lasts a long time. Plastic, I mean, you're putting plastic culverts and stuff like that that last umpteen years, you know, over their own rust. So, yeah, it's my recommendation we do this and this be the last tank. I think that house sees it. At least for our lifetime, I'll say. But anyways, yeah. So that would be my recommendation. Question away. It was just a quick summary of what I know. Secured Pump does do work with Horicon, Hustisford, Mount Horeb. He said municipality wise, a little more rural, you know, where they probably don't have staff on board as much as, you know, you get into the urban areas. So he's done municipal work. He's familiar with it. He is a younger guy, but he is a go-getter, excited. He loved the opportunity. And I think this is another thing where we could even work with him more in the future on other projects potentially.
Joe, is this all right of way work within the right of way?
No, this would be all outside of the right of way. So this is, if you go down their driveway and then the driveway turns left to go into their house or garage, it would just kind of be beyond that is where the tank is. So it's definitely well off the right of way. Oh, yeah, and he does not have a plumber's license. I did confirm that with him, but he said generally what he does, he's worked with, because he works close with the municipality, that the municipality is generally on site, which we would obviously not necessarily be helping him, but we would be there to see it, look at it, know it's going in correctly. And it would be on us to sign off on it, you know, because there is that fear of a permit or something, but you know, this, we own it. It would be our thing to deal with. So I would be overseeing that, and you know, he's more of a pump guy, not a plumber per se, you know, so this is more of his bread and butter. He's not going into a house and roughing in a house for plumbing. That's not what he does. He's more the pump end of the deal. So
Can I ask, you said it's 11 feet in the ground?
that's what I've been told. I mean, yes,
Okay.
and I believe it. I've been on it now that I've seen a couple of these in the last month. I could gather
Okay, okay.
it's down there.
Just that the homeowner didn't, or anybody didn't do anything to, you know,
No.
obviously was, if it was less.
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
If it's somewhere where you could have got a shovel and fooled around, but ain't nobody getting a shovel down there, you know, so yeah, it's nature of the beast, I think,
Or riding
unfortunately.
through it or something. like
Yeah,
that.
no, it's unfortunate. It just
Okay,
did its time.
okay.
So the question I would have, Kathy, have you done an analysis of whether this is a public construction project, an emergency project, replacement of equipment? I think these are one of the first ones, at least this body's had to deal with. So we probably have to set a policy on it.
So what we did was we put out notice.
We put out notice of the request for bid for quotes. And these are the only two that we have. We did
So
do
our
it.
practice would be if it's under $25,000, over $5,000, we put out for proposal. And then you do the class 1 notice.
Right.
Okay, I'm just, for everybody's, I don't know what was done before, but one of the reasons when I'm invited here is to, we may, we're setting precedent
Right.
on some of these things, and I just want to get into the record what the procedure is that the
Very good.
staff has decided to follow. This is more informational for the committee.
Yeah, I think if this would be approved, we do the class 1 notice for the 7 days and then you know.
No, we did that already.
Okay, so there you go. She's on. it,
And then
so.
we did it for the ones that Don was suggesting, our manholes and things like that already.
These are all under 25,000.
These are all under 25,000.
Because I mean, this is iffy. Somebody could argue with replacement equipment. They not want to follow it. They could argue in some instances it's emergency. Those are the things we look to. Obviously, the practice that you're following is the best practice.
Very good.
Thank you.
Happy to hear that.
I didn't have any other questions.
No, thank you. So we've got you here. Any other questions for Joe on this? I guess it sounds like it's a long way from the right of way. And I guess what I was thinking is, does it need to be brought back to, or can it be brought back to?
No, because that's the purpose of the pump, because you got gravity from the house going into this tank and then the pump is pushing it up to the road. If you would move this into the right of way, now you need another pump to push it to that, pump to get it. Somebody else that probably is better plumber explained it to me, but right, I mean, in essence, the
The
purpose of the
engineer.
grinder pump is because it's at the low end, pushing it up to the right of
I
way.
get that, but is this time to bring it back to the right of way?
But
Yeah.
There's enough pitch, you have to
Yeah.
have at least between 1/8 and 1/4 inch per foot in order to get it into some pump basin, which is what we're replacing. And the further you go, the deeper that thing gets. So you can't, the reason it's in the most economical place regardless of the village or the homeowner. Because they're not gonna take it out any further. There's no way to get it back to the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'd be nice if it was. we
Well,
wouldn't
that's
have
what I
to-
think I said. Yeah.
Hey,
No, it's all good. We'll talk about this after the.
Water and stuff runs downhill. I mean,
Yes.
That's all you have to
Right.
remember.
you explained
I
it.
just like razzing them up. Oh, okay.
I
I'll
tuned
take
out
some
after-
notes from
I tuned out after the 3
my
minutes.
elder over there. All good, all good.
All right.
We asked for your approval.
So we are looking for a recommendation to the village board.
Also move.
So moved by Mr. Everly,
So second.
seconded by Ms. Beal. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Bye.
All opposed? Motion carries to the board 5-0.
Thank you.
Is it serviceable right now?
Yes.
They can use, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. 6B, discussion necessary action regarding homeowners that are using sewer service and are not invoiced prior to October 2022. And recommendation to the village board of same, Mike Sargent.
So there was a little bit of history on this. About a year ago, we received a notice from a title company asking for a cutoff bill for that customer sewer. We get these on a regular basis. And we responded back that location had no sewer service. The title company said, no, the homeowner insisted they have sewer. So we investigated and we found that the homeowner had connected to the sewer system, but had never been built, at least what we could see. And we went through the records trying to determine if they had paid for the hookup fees and the necessary fees to be in the position. When hearing that we had this situation, we decided to take on a study to see if there were any others that would be similar, because if it could happen once, it could happen again. And in the process of contacting all the homeowners that had a house where a pipe was in the road, asking, are you hooked up to the sewer? and or are you having your septic system inspected on a regular basis as required by Waukesha County statute? We were able to identify a number of properties that were actually hooked up to the system and using the sewer system and were not being billed. And there were also a number of homes where the pipe was adjacent to their property. And according to the sanitary service code, they should be hooked up within 1 year of the pipe being in the ground. So in each case, there was an action that needed to be taken. We undertook to pursue whatever we could as far as economic situation. And we got an opinion back from an attorney that said that we are restricted by Wisconsin statute to billing for 2 years of historical billing. And that get into discussion about hookup fees where they were been on the hooked up to the sewer for more than 2 years. Could you go back and get the hookup fees? So we came up with an amount at which each of the homeowners would have to pay based on their specific case, and we sent them a bill, an invoice for what we said would be the 2 years history. And for the people whose homes were adjacent to the property, they were given a letter telling them that they had until October 1st, 2020, 2023, to complete that hookup. Since that time, the original homeowner that this all started with, their case was resolved. When they sold, they had put a lot of money in escrow to cover any potential liability. And since there was an interest between the buyer and the seller to resolve the escrow, they resolved the case. And that one is all done and put away. But we still have 6 or 7 of these that are still hanging open. And recently, and there's a little later in the agenda, we're going to talk about one specifically. But what I'm asking for here is, well, how does this committee want us to pursue this? What action do you recommend that we take with these people? And we have 2 different groups that they need to hook up to the sewer system. They have a septic that they're using, but according to the sanitary service code, they have to hook up. And then we have these people who were unbilled for a period of time and they owe us 2 years worth of billing.
So if we start with the latter, the people that have been billed in October for 2 years that have not paid, how would you like us to address that? Put it on their taxes at the end of the year if they don't pay it by the end of the year? Or do you have another thought on how we could handle that? And Attorney Macy, if you have any ideas, that'd be helpful.
I myself would say, all remedies that we can pursue, they need to pay their fair share. There are a lot of people, I've been on this involved when they were even thinking of sewer down there. And there are so many people that came to the meeting that didn't want it, that had to get it. And these people should be dealt no differently. You know, they have the system, they're supposed to use it, comes past their house, they should pay, period. If they don't pay, I think a letter should be sent out. If they don't pay by such and such date, it's going on the tax bill, period.
What is your quarterly charge?
For most of these people, it's been $150 a quarter.
There are some people that don't wait, that wait until the end of the year, or some people we carry it over. You know, we put it on the tax bill because they don't pay it on time.
Right.
So they get like a $10 fee if they don't pay it every 3 months like they should.
My suggestion would be to ask for full payment or make some kind of payment arrangement. If it's not paid by the time the tax bills go out, that would go on the tax bill. That's my.
I think for payment, we, as a board, we discussed that previously. The board at that time decided we didn't want to be a bank. You know, that you pay your bills and you make recommendations on you try to.
I would give it a limited time for the repayment.
Oh, I thought you meant we give them like an essence a loan and you can pay it out.
No, I would just say that you need to figure out a payment.
Exactly.
Payment schedule And now we're kind of into the middle of the year, so.
Right.
You know, if you're not ready to pay by November before it goes to tax roll,
It goes on the tax roll.
it would just go to tax roll.
Exactly. I thought you meant that like a bank.
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, these are, and we gotta make sure that, well, when we get into the second issue with hookup fees, we've got to decide how we're gonna deal with what the current hookup fees are. So that's the second case, but in this first case, we recoup whatever we can. It's unfortunate this was missed for God only knows how many years, but it is what it is. We can't print money anymore.
And just to clarify something, as a board, and Mike can attest to that, or maybe, well, I've always asked, is everyone hooked up? And our previous person who helped us administrator, let's just say he just kind of let the district down. And that's why we have a lot of issues,
No,
in my opinion.
Well, I think, again, looking at the history, part of the history is that the sanitary district had no permitting requirement. So that a person who built a house, and if we get a plumber to hook it up, there was no permit ever pulled for them to go look and make sure that they were connected to the sewer correctly.
Yeah.
It was a voluntary activity. And the sanitary district didn't really have anybody who was working full time. So this could go unnoticed. That's what we found out how it happened.
Right.
But any plumber that's doing that work should be pulling a plumbing permit, so that conversation should have happened between your permitting agency and the sanitary district.
And that's where the breakdown.
And he's been told now that if there's a new build out there, you notify us, just so we know. It wasn't done before. There was a failure.
So if I may,
Go ahead.
could you tell me, are these property owners that have been notified that they have to pay the back 2 years, are they paying their quarterlies?
So everybody's, I shouldn't say everybody, they're paying consistent with the other clients we have. We have a history of a lot of our quarterly bills that go unpaid until it's turned over to the tax.
I have a similar experience that people do it intentionally, so.
Right, they don't worry about it, it's only $10, we don't charge them, you know, for ARs, we charge a percentage and a half for every time it keeps going over and rolls, and then that starts to roll a little bit more than $10, and then it goes, they start thinking about
then they take
repayment.
the whole thing off on their taxes.
Yeah, we
Just
will.
Yes.
so we know which two, you said there's two properties, correct? For the,
It's 6
Yeah,
or
but
7.
I believe there's 4 that are where we're not beginning payments right now.
okay,
On
so
this-
which
on this-
numbers?
Identify him, please.
Yeah, yeah.
The ones that have the $1,270 pass
So that-
service fee.
Number 4. I only have 3 of them.
I got, well, underneath as well as Tamarack.
Tamarack is the one that was resolved.
Okay,
So
so it's 3 more.
That was the sale. Mhm.
That one's resolved.
Okay.
So it's 4, 6, and 7.
Mine too.
4, 6, and 7. Okay, only thing I want to make a point of clarification on. The North 8357 Longview does not exist on GIS. I think the closest one is 8337 Longview.
It could be.
Is that right?
typo,
Check
it could be
address.
typo. But it's been confirmed that they acknowledged to us that they were hooked. We worked with it 2 ways. We went to the Waukesha County and see if they had their septic system inspections. And if they didn't have septic system inspections, it became pretty obvious that they were hooked up.
So Mike, you think that it's just a typo?
Yeah.
So if you went on GIS, you know the person's name,
Yeah, we have.
correct? So
we
you
have
can
names.
double check that.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So just for the record, 1, 2, and 3. They just didn't pay their hookup fee, but they're. paid
They
their
never
monthly.
hooked up?
They hooked up and never got notified, or the sanitary district never had them on the billing cycle. Now, of the people, the Tamarack situation. There was no billing going on for the Tamarack, but the individual did produce evidence that he had paid the hookup fees 20-some years ago.
Well, my question is more 1, 2, and 3, Longview, Scott, and Country Meadows. You show that they owe for hookups, but they don't show for any past service fee.
Because they're the ones that are, the pipe is in the ground in front of or adjacent to their property, but they're not hooked up.
They're not hooked up yet.
Did they pay the hookup fee?
We don't know. We haven't heard back.
Okay, so, so those 3 you sent notice, they had to hook up by October of 23.
That's correct.
Okay, and we've only heard back from one of those, which is later on the agenda. Have you heard back from the other 2
Have
as
not.
to their intent?
No.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So they're not hooked up, so they don't know anything, but they're supposed to be hooked up.
So what are we gonna do about those hookups that, if they have the 1, 2, and 3, what are we gonna do about that?
I think
We're-
that's on the
yeah.
agenda later,
Okay.
possibly the closed session.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
And that's the reason I'm.
Yep.
So the action item that's in front of you is 4, 5, and 7.
Or
No,
6
4,
and 7.
7.
Or 6
4,
and
6,
7.
and 7. I'm sorry. And that's a recommendation to the village board, if you have a mind to do so, directing the staff to place them, to put them on notice that if they are not paid by X date, which is a date in November, in order to get them on the tax roll for December and next year, to send them a letter, direct staff to send them a letter that they need to pay by X date, and failure to do so will result in the matter being placed on the tax bill.
But I just want to clarify here, the ones that we're talking about now, 4, 6, and 7. If they can't produce, if there's no proof that they ever paid the initial hookup fees, I don't want to forego not getting that.
Well, I assumed we documented that they had paid the hookup.
We
No,
But we,
that's what I'm hearing. We're talking significant dollars here.
but Mike, at the sanitary district, if I may, it was discussed that we could only go back 2 years.
But not for hookup fees.
And so we,
I don't,
I know, I agree.
Well, why, when you put the chart together, maybe this will answer the question, did you not include the potentiality of a hookup fee being paid by 4, 6, and 7?
But on the initial list, they were. This list has been redacted after we had gotten the opinion that we could only go back 2 years and the hookup fee was preceding to the 2 years. The hookup fees were removed.
But we don't know that they were paid.
We don't know if they were or they weren't. I was like,
So
we
I
have
guess
with
that
the,
the
with the
question
one,
would be is that, who did we get that legal opinion from?
Attorney Mason.
Yeah, I don't know that I distinguish between the hookup and past service, so I'll have to look at that.
Okay.
Okay.
That,
So
yeah, that's
we'll
the
revisit,
question I've got.
but Attorney Macy, doing something about the past service fee right now is not gonna, I guess, hamper going back for a hookup fee.
No, and we can table this until, the further research is done. We don't need action tonight. We
Right.
have plenty of time. I would just be recommending we give them another notice, hopefully a 60-day notice if possible before the November deadline, just to keep that in mind. But we can go back and look at this more closely on the hookup fee. I know we were talking about the past service.
Thank you.
So I'll check that.
I guess that'd be my recommendation that we table 6B then for further information.
I
as long
second.
as we act on it next meeting, because I
Yes.
don't run out of time.
We'll have the 60 days.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll make the motion to the table and second it by Neil.
Mhm.
Any discussion further?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, 5-0. 6D, discussion necessary action regarding customers that should be connected to the sewer but are not connected to the sewer who have not responded to letters or invoices sent by the sanitary district in 2022. And recommendation to the village board as same. Mike Sargent?
well, these are the properties where the pipe is adjacent to their house and we've got confirmation that they are still utilizing the septic system.
And what numbers would that be?
I don't have the sheet for me.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
So those are the ones that have the $15,390 hookup listed,
Yes.
and there's no service fee, obviously, because they don't have service.
Correct.
So they're identified as 1, 2, and 3 on our list. One question I had was, how do we know that those are the only 3?
Well, I can say that there was probably close to 40 hours of man hours of work put in trying to identify who and what. We're working with the maps that showed where our pipes were laid. The GIS maps, looking across that, the GIS maps do have on it the houses that are having their septic tanks pumped and the inspection reports sent to the Waukesha County. Then when we identified potential problems, we sent each of those people a questionnaire asking them to respond to us how they're hooked up, how they're handling their septic system. So we've got these are the ones that came back where we did not get a satisfactory resolution of the questions that we had. So is there some other ones possible? Yeah, if somebody ran a pipe across another person's property, when they were doing the original install, some of the service laterals connections were fairly unusual as far as how they came together. So we're looking at properties that are just adjacent to the pipe. We're not looking at somebody that did an elaborate system, but there could be some elaborate system out there that we're unaware of.
Was anything ever, I'm sorry, I realize this is probably a facetious question, but was there any inspection done when this system was put in? By anybody? I won't expect an answer. It just.
The
very
original
frustrating.
contractor, the original.
No, the contractor is not the inspector.
Right,
I'm
right.
sorry.
Right, I know, I'm just saying. They're-
required by the state to do inspection on any.
We weren't on the board then, we have no idea. This was
What year,
Forget my
what year was it put in?
1990, 91.
This is so damn frustrating. That it just makes me sick.
So, I guess I went back to the question to answer, should we, is do we have a current policy in place that would require them?
The sanitary service code that's in place says that they are delinquent in their hookup. And it tells that they have given notice to get hooked up. If they don't hook up by the notice date, the district can go in and take action. So there's a section that says what kind of penalties that they can be charged if they don't hook up. And that the sanitary district can actually go in there and force them to make the connection.
I just want to clarify something, because you've said a couple times adjacent to the lot. You know, to get service, it has to be on the lot. When you say adjacent, would you explain what you mean by adjacent?
The pipe is adjacent to the property
So
itself.
it's on the property.
No,
No, it's in front of.
Yeah, in the
adjacent.
road. That's what I'm saying. It's in the road in front.
Right.
I was thinking adjacent, like it's kitty corners or so. I just wanted clarification. No
Chairman,
problem. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
would we like to jump into closed session and to do further
Yeah.
discussion on this and on E?
If he's ready.
Yeah, when he comes back. he'll be ready.
Okay.
We can push off D to the next meeting. That is fine.
Right. Yeah, I guess I would make a request to table D until the next meeting. I'll make that motion right now.
I second.
Moonen and then Beal, any discussion on that? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 table. And then I'll make a request to hold off on 6C and 6E and we'll move to item 7, which is a closed session. And I'll just read that. Closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely or is likely to become involved, more specifically regarding lack of sewer connection in accordance with sewer service code section 1.03 sub 2 sub A at specifically N82W22530 Scott Street. Roll call vote.
You have to make a motion. to
Or well, actually,
We need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
I second.
Motion made by Moonen, seconded by Beal. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, closed session at 6:02.
Roll call or? did you just show-
Thank you, Joe. Thank you,
I'm
Mitch.
gonna mark down how everybody voted. Thank you. I gotta pause the recording though. Eberly,
Yes.
Plass,
Yes.
Beal,
Yes.
Moonen,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Closed session. Okay. 6:18, we're back in open session.
All right, we're back in open session and we have item 6C and 6E left. I guess we'll call 6C to the discussion and necessary action regarding customers that should be connected to the sewer, but are not connected to the sewer, who have not responded to letters and or invoices sent by the sanitary district in 2022 and recommendation to the village board of same. Motion to table to next meeting.
See Annie.
All right, there is a motion for tabling 6C by Sergeant, or Mr. Everly.
I second.
Seconded by Jane. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. And we'll call 6E, discussion and necessary action on the letter received from the property owner of N82W22530 Scott, indicating an unwillingness to comply with the direction received from the district regarding sewer service code section 103(2)A and recommendation to village board of same. Motion table next meeting. Motion made by Mr. Everly,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Beal. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0-14. And we are looking for items at this time.
I think we wanted to put on the agenda about changing the time and the date and place for our meeting.
So
When we go through adjournment,
what's that?
We can't,
They're asking what items could be placed
Yeah.
on next month's agenda, and one is changing location and possible time of the meeting. They
So
want
that-
that on next month's agenda, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
So we have our feedback from the members, and I guess there was a slight preference to move so that we're not butting up against the planning commission meeting. I guess. Do we want to move? Do we want it to be on the next agenda to move it to a different date? So I'd be looking for a recommendation from the committee. And this is a permanent one. This is not a temporary one.
so adjourn to the second or the third Wednesday of.
Yeah, likely it would be the third Wednesday. We're on the fourth Wednesday right now.
How about, I make a motion,
It's not on the agenda.
It's not-
We can
Oh, we can't.
adjourn to,
okay.
So the next meeting will be.
6:28.
No, it's it will be 6:28,
Yeah.
right?
can't we adjourn it to that date?
28,
Here.
5 o'clock here. Then we can put it on the agenda to change it,
Yes,
Okay.
for July.
because we can't talk about it tonight.
Yep, so 6:28 at 5 PM will be the next one. And then we're looking, are we gonna change the July and then further meeting?
We'll have that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any other items right now?
don't we need to, deal with 8?
Are we taking a?
No,
You tabled it out.
table, we don't have to have any,
We don't have to have.
we don't have anything.
Fine, we're done. Motion to adjourn.
Let me just, before we get that on the floor, anyone else have any other items? All right, if there are any, please message them to me prior to the deadline, and I'll be looking for an adjournment motion. Mr.
I'll
Everly
second.
and Ms. Beal, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any Opposed? 5-0 carries. 6:23, meeting is closed.